Today, we're going to play with a couple of date functions in PowerApps I've never used. EDate and EOMonth date, or EOMonth, something like that. Whatever it is, we're going to use these two functions to find things like what is the same date for this every month. So for example, if you choose January 30th and a month from then would be February 30th, but that's not right? It should be February 28th. So how to find that? And we're also going to look at a second function there that allows us to grab the end of the month. We're going to play with a couple date tricks, just make sure you know how those work with Sequence, and generally just learn some things real quick. If that sounds like fun, then let's switch over to my desktop and take a look. Okay, so let's make that all make sense. So basically, we're going to look at two different ways of doing things. So EDate, so for example, if a customer started a subscription, deliveries, or some type of thing where you need to do a scheduling, and like, hey, we started on the 30th, well then for the next month, there isn't a 30th, right? February doesn't have a 30th, so you go to 2/28. And then March has 31 days, but still goes to 30. April has 30 days, but it only goes to 30, right? So you can see that we're getting the right day of the month, regardless of whatever, right? So we used to kind of do that with month date add, and that would mess that up. So we don't want to do that. We're going to look at how EDate allows us to do this. And then EOMonth is going to allow us to get the last day of every month just directly. Now, along the way, we're going to also have to kind of use a little fun there. So let's throw ourselves on a new screen real quick. And let's add a gallery, all right, like so. And so the first thing we need to do is make sure you guys know what sequence is, right? So sequence is a function, and we'll just change this here to title, that gives you a table of numbers. In this case, starts at 1 and goes up 12 times, right? So 12 numbers. So you can see it's a table, has a column named value, and goes 1 to 12, okay? This function is very important when you're listing out dates. So for example, if you wanted to get, how about all the next 12 days, right? You could do something like this. You would first say AddColumns, that's one of your data shaping functions, and you'd say to today, and then we would have just done a date, oh, sorry, that should be the name of your column, so we'll call it my date like that. And then here, you're going to say something to the effect of, I want date add, and then today, and then we're going to add 1, and then we're going to add days. And if we do that, now if we go into our gallery, we're then going to have this item dot my dates. And so today is, oh, I didn't do that right. Well, there you go, I messed up. All right, so I did the 1 here. Obviously, that's not going to work. So we would actually need to use the value, which is the, remember, sequence that had that column. So that's what 7, 7, 7, 8, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, etc. Now you're thinking, but Shane, I also want to show today's date, right? Because today is July 6th. So that's July 7th because it's July 6th plus 1. So then the sequence function also, if we do a comma, we can say, I want you to start at 0. And so if we just throw another label in here real quick, insert label. If we said show me value, like so, you can see it's 0. So we're just adding 7, 6 plus 0 plus 1, etc. Okay? So that's one way that we've kind of done date shenanigans in the past. But now I'm saying, hey, instead of that, I want to see the end of the month. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this section here where we're creating that column. And we're going to say we want to use EOMonth. And so it's going to say, all right, what month? And so for the month, we'll just say use today. It can pull the month out of there. And then for the number of months to add to it, we're going to say value. And now, oh, I got to close my last parenthesis here. So then now we have, let's just pull service quits and cut off. We have July 31st, right? So it's the end of this month. And then August 31st, September, October, November. Yeah, I'm not going to read the months to you, right? But if we go down here to January or February, we can see we're getting 2/28. And the reason I show you this is because a lot of times people will do things like they'll do these weird like date add number of days, but then they get really confused with the number of days because is it 30, is it 31, is it 28? Now with that, of course, you could have used, our old friend, the date function, right? We could have said date add like that. And then if we take date add and we give it the date of 2026, 1/31, right? So January 31st. And then we add 1 month to that, like so. it will spit out 2/28/2026, right? So there are things you can do there, to try to get the end of the month, but it just gets really confusing in a lot of scenarios. And so when you're trying to get end of month, the cleanest way now is just to use our friend, the EOMonth function, instead of trying to figure out what dates to add and stuff like that. This video is another great example of unknown unknowns, right? It's one of the biggest challenges with PowerApps is you don't know what you don't know. And so that is what this video is trying to help enlighten you with. If you're one of those places like, man, I really wish I didn't have so many unknowns in PowerApps. I don't even know if I have unknowns in PowerApps. Maybe go over to training.powerapps911.com and check out our 201 course. Our 201 course is all about those core fundamentals. So right now, while you're faking it until you make it, it's going to get you to, hey, I'm just awesome at this. All right, back to the video. Now, what you can't do though with this whole idea of date add is get the EDate, right? So if we throw a label on here, and so the EDate, and then give it a date. So for example, we're going to say date 1/2026. I keep messing that up. And then 1 and then 30. And then if we say, all right, give me 1 month on that, right? That's going to go to 2/28/2026, right? We showed it earlier in the example. And with that, you're like, there's not a way to do those type of, keep the same one. Now, if I think really hard, there might be some shenanigan ways that I could do this using the day functions and month functions, and I don't know. But we're not here for shenanigans, right? We want something nice and clean. Now, while we were recording, I kept screwing up the date, right? I kept typing in the wrong thing for date, and I couldn't remember why. Like, why am I having such a hard time? The reason for that is because you can use date and then 2026 or 1/1/1 right to get January 1st, 2026. And that's one way of doing it. That's not usually the way I do it. For whatever reason, today, I was doing it that way. What I usually will do is you can also use DateValue, and then you give it the text, and then you can give it 1/1/2026, like so, and then that will also return a date object. So if you have the date as a text string, which I often do, then use the DateValue. If you're just trying to force a date like that and you have it as numbers, then you can use the date function. So that's what was confusing me. For whatever reason, today I decided it was date, whereas 99% of the time in my life, I use DateValue. Anyway, back to the video. So if we throw ourselves another gallery on the screen, we'll drag it over here. And so what we want to do with this one is we're going to use our same little friend sequence again, right? So do 12,0 again. And then we'll just change this back over here to be just title. So that way we're seeing that lovely little value. Pull it over somewhere. Oh my goodness. Like so. Okay, and so now that we've got that, we know sequence makes the numbers, right, 0 to 12, yay. What we're going to do here is we're going to do our same add columns again, and then we're going to just call this my date again, because that was easy enough. And then here we're going to do EDate, and then the date, we'll just say today. Or no, we're going to have to do that January 30th, right, to show off how cool it is. So date 1/1/130 again, and then here we're going to add to it the value, close up once parentheses, and now if we go down here and just do our little copy and paste, so we have a label, and then we'll change this one to be my date. And so now we've got 130, 228, 330, 430, etc. And so once again, the idea there is that is if you have something that's going to reoccur, but it's reoccurring on one of those days, the 31st or the 30th, the 29th, right? Any of those days that get messed up on a reoccurrence cycles. So a lot of times you'll see this in like product subscriptions, delivery subscriptions, those type of things. We need something to happen on a reoccurring, right? So contract dates, maybe you want to be able to calculate, payment dates because somebody wasn't paying attention. They made it one of those weird days. So the idea here is that EDate gives you the same date on each month, and the number of months is just this value. We can even, I'm pretty sure, do a negative number here. So we want to see the value the previous month, right? They're all the same now, but you get the idea. So we can do that. And our friend EOMonth is just always going to take whatever date you give it, and it's always just going to give you the end of the month. And that's how we get into the 31st and those types of dates that maybe you wanted, maybe you didn't. But the good news is it understands that February only has 28 days. Right? Darn February and your messed up number of days. Right? Wouldn't it be better if everything just had 30 days? But I don't think anyone's consulting me to change the calendar anytime soon. So there you go. That's what I've got for today. Nothing super crazy or exciting. Just another one of those good core skills. I was reading through the list of functions like, I've never seen those before. And so I went and read about them. And it was like, all right, these apply. They work just like they do in Excel. And we were able to pull them in. If we can help you with this or anything else, just hit us up over at www.powerapps901.com. We're happy to help. Or if you got ideas of future videos, leave them in the comments below. I'm always looking for new ideas. This is video number 593. So whew, that's a lot of videos. All right. Anyway, with that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day.